A house got transferred for $1. One single dollar. Not a typo. That's not a metaphor. That's not a punchline. That's an actual line item buried in a federal filing out of the Southern District of Florida. And the second I saw it, I had to put my phone down and stare at the wall for a minute. Because this whole Tasha K is playing chess theory floating around the timeline? Yeah, we need to talk about that. Because the more you read what Cardi B's legal team just put on the record, the more it stops looking like chess and starts looking like somebody got caught building a paper trail with her own hands and smiling while doing it. Real quick before I get into this, y'all already know the deal. Hit the like, smash the subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss part 2. Because I promise you this saga is not wrapping up tonight. Now let's get back to that dollar. The headline most blogs ran with, Cardi B is suing Tasha K's husband. True but lazy. The actual filing is a federal action lodged on May 6, 2026, in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida, naming Cheickna Kebe and his entity Yelen Entertainment LLC as defendants, accused of fraudulent transfers, asset shielding, and basically running the entire unwind with Tasha K operation through a brand new company that allegedly sprung up almost the exact moment the original $4 million defamation verdict landed back in 2022. The blog summary doesn't capture how surgical this thing reads. Once you put the timeline next to the corporate filings, the picture is uglier than anybody on the timeline is admitting. So pull up. Let me walk you through the receipts before I tell you what I actually think is going on here. Start with the words on the page. No interpretation yet. Just what's been said, on the record, by people who had to sign their names to it. From Cardi B's attorney Lisa Moore, in a statement to the day the bankruptcy plan was confirmed. Today marks the end of a multi-year-long chapter of lies, deception, and fraudulent conveyance on the part of Tasha K, her husband, and their entities. Damn. Read that again. Fraudulent conveyance. That's not internet slang. That's the legal term that, once a court agrees with it, opens doors most people don't want opened. Same statement, different bar for more. We don't believe the false tears, and we protect against them. That one's not even legal language. That's a flex. Now flip the script. Tasha K's bankruptcy attorney Chad Van Horn told the same outlet the deal was a milestone and that working with her has been a pleasure, adding he wished her the best in the future. Cool. A lawyer wishing his client the best in the future. You ever heard a defense attorney sound that relieved before a federal fraud suit dropped? Me neither. Going back further, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit, March 21, 2023. In the 5-page ruling that killed Tasha's appeal cold, defendant Tasha Kebe asks for a new trial, saying that there was insufficient evidence for the jury verdict against her. But as she all but admits, she didn't make either of the required post-verdict motions in the district court. Translation in plain English. She didn't even file the right paperwork to argue the appeal she was bragging about. That's not chess. That's losing your queen on move 4. And one more. Cardi's own words from the witness stand back in 2022, talking about the original videos that started this whole thing. She testified the lies about herpes, cocaine, and prostitution made her feel suicidal, made her feel like she didn't deserve her daughter culture, and led her to therapy. Quiet for a beat on that one. Y'all can have your she's playing chess theory, but understand what the chessboard was built on top of first. Now connect the dots, because once you line these moments up by date, the genius strategy narrative starts cracking like an old windshield. January 2022, jury verdict. Nearly $4 million. Defamation, false light, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Within months of that verdict, and this is the part nobody on the timeline is hammering, Kebe Studios, the original LLC behind Unwind, gets quietly shut down. The exact same operation, same channel, same revenue streams, restarts under a new banner. Yelen Entertainment LLC, registered to Cheickna Kebe. Same content, new name on the bank account, different signature on the YouTube AdSense deposits. That's not a coincide. Actually, no. Scratch that. I'm not even going to use that word. That's a pattern. There's a difference. March 2023. 11th Circuit slams the appeal door shut. The verdict is final. Final. There's no Supreme Court rescue waiting in the wings, despite Tasha publicly vowing she'd take it all the way to the Supreme Court if need be. She didn't, or she couldn't. Either way, silence on that vow ever since. Later in 2023, Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing. And here's where it gets cinematic. Tasha tells the bankruptcy court her biggest single asset is a 2021 Chevy Silverado. Her total net worth, by her own filing, less than $59,000. $59,000 for a woman whose channel was, at the time, pulling some of the heaviest gossip vertical traffic on YouTube. Make that math work for me. I'll wait. Hold on, back up. The detail people are sleeping on. According to the federal complaint reporting from Hypefresh picked up by, somewhere in this run, an interest in a home was transferred from Tasha to her husband for $1. Not market value. Not a sale. $1. That's the kind of move that, in fraudulent transfer law, has its own special chapter. Lawyers don't even need a magnifying glass for that one. They just need a calendar. Then comes the bankruptcy plan, confirmed by a judge, where Cardi is set to receive monthly payments starting at $176,532 in year one and climbing to $318,653 by year 5, totaling roughly $1.178 million over the 5-year window. The plan explicitly states Kebe is paid both individually and through her husband Cheickna Kebe's company, Yelen Entertainment. Read that sentence one more time. The bankruptcy plan itself, the document Tasha's own counsel signed off on, names Yelen Entertainment as a payment vector. That's a confession baked right into the deal she took. And the cherry. The plan does not bar Cardi from speaking about Tasha. Tasha's mouth is locked. Cardi's mic is hot. That's not negotiation. That's a checkmate set up 2 moves ago. 3 fragments worth zooming in on. None of them are the obvious ones. Buried in the federal complaint is an allegation that Yelen Entertainment swept up roughly $356,000 in YouTube gross receipts that, by the operational reality of the channel, should have been flowing to Tasha individually. $356,000 from one platform through a husband's LLC, while the principal is in active bankruptcy, claiming her biggest asset is a pickup truck. Y'all see why Lisa Moore wasn't speaking metaphorically when she said fraudulent conveyance? That word is doing federal jurisdiction level work. Tasha posted a recent video where, between sniffles, she lists out the indignities. Downsized from a Cadillac Escalade to a 2003 Prius. Can't get a job because everybody knows who she is. Can't even cry properly because of the Botox. I rewound it twice. The cadence is too clean. The pivots between bits are too rehearsed. That's not breakdown content. That's bit content. Whether you find it funny or disrespectful is a vibe call, but the framing, that's a person who knows the camera is rolling and has rehearsed which take to keep. The bankruptcy plan included a non-disparagement clause. Don't speak on Cardi. Don't speak on her family. Don't put a thing on any platform tied to her. 25 posts later, Cardi's team is back in court holding receipts. 25. That's not a slip. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a pattern of conduct that, and this is where it gets dangerous, actually helps Cardi, because every documented violation becomes leverage to pierce the bankruptcy shield and chase the full original judgment. She might be feeding the algorithm, but the algorithm she should be worried about is the federal docketing system. Watch how 3 rooms are framing the same story. Leans into the legal weight. Unprecedented is the lead. Lisa Moore gets the mic. The framing positions Cardi as a creditor with the uniquely protective deal that puts her in a priority position similar to that of the IRS. That's not casual phrasing. Comparing a private creditor to the IRS is telegraphing how serious bankruptcy attorneys think this plan is. Complex stays cooler, drier, almost hands-off. They run the same facts but lean on the attribution, careful to keep their own voice neutral. Cataloging the dollars and the timeline without much editorial heat. Complex. That's the trade press playing it safe. Defamation cases bring out cautious copy editors. Is the one that actually digs into the new federal suit. The Yelen Entertainment piece. The $1 home transfer. The offshore trust whisper. The $356,000 figure. And frames the move as Cardi expanding the judgment pursuit. Not fighting fresh ground. Subtle but huge. Expansion is the tell. It means Cardi's team isn't asking for new money. They're saying the money was always ours. You just relabeled the bank account. Now the loud counter-narrative, and I'll steelman it before I clap it. The argument going around, Tasha K is winning. Her name stays in the algorithm. She's out-earning the judgment. Cardi can sue all she wants. The worst case is a $4 million ceiling on damages, and Tasha can clear that in clicks. Joe Budden does it. Ray J does it. Antagonism is a business model. So why would she stop? Real fan camp logic. Internally consistent. And it works. Until the word federal enters the chat. Civil ceilings cap at the judgment. Federal fraud claims don't care about your YouTube CPM. Once the suit alleges fraudulent conveyance, and the husband is a named defendant who's already admitted under oath to moving money to dodge garnishment, you've stopped playing in the comment section economy and walked into a courtroom where the worst-case scenario isn't a fine. It's a referral. The civil case can be the roadmap a U.S. attorney reads on a slow Tuesday. That's not a bigger judgment. That's a different kind of consequence entirely. And it doesn't show up in your AdSense dashboard. Here's what the timeline keeps tiptoeing around. The dominant read everybody's running with. Tasha K is a strategic genius monetizing chaos, and the lawsuits are the product, not the problem. Cute theory. Comforting, even, because it lets the audience root for someone they think outsmarted a billionaire-tier celebrity using nothing but a podcast mic and audacity. Allow me to file a different brief. What if she didn't plan this? What if the chess narrative is fan fiction we built around her after the fact? Because the alternative, that someone got cocky, ignored their lawyer, and started leaving fingerprints on every wire transfer, is less fun to post about. Look at the actual moves. A non-disparagement clause she walked through 25 times. A husband admitting under oath that he was moving money to avoid wage garnishment, which, allegedly, sidesteps the criminal exposure for him personally, but does absolutely nothing to insulate the assets from civil clawback. A home interest transferred for $1. The most documented fraudulent transfer red flag in the entire civil playbook. An LLC named Yelen Entertainment that didn't exist before the verdict and somehow became the receiving account for the same channel's revenue. Y'all, none of that is chess. Chess players see 3 moves ahead. This looks like a person who saw 1 move ahead. Get the money out of my name. And never asked a second question, which is what does this paper trail look like to a federal magistrate in Florida 4 years from now? There's a version of this where Tasha really is monetizing the algorithm and counting the $4 million as a cost of doing business. Sure, Joe Budden's name gets thrown around for a reason. Every time Drake talks about me, I make millions. That math is real for some people. But Joe Budden isn't moving money through his husband's LLC. Joe Budden isn't transferring property for $1. Joe Budden isn't sitting in a Chapter 11 plan that names a third party as a payment vector. Joe Budden also, crucially, isn't being sued for defamation by someone with 7-figure litigation funding and a lawyer who calls plans unprecedented on the record. The other piece nobody's saying out loud. Cardi B isn't doing this for $4 million. Bill Callis just wrapped a tour reportedly clearing tens of millions. The chase isn't financial. It's systemic. She's building case law, frankly. She's making it expensive, emotionally, legally, generationally expensive, to be the person who decided her name was content. And every motion her team files makes the next blogger pause before they draft a thumbnail. That's the unspoken win. The deterrent. The crying video. The Botox punchline. The Prius bit. That all reads like someone trying to laugh through the realization that the floor underneath them is glass. It can be both. She can be a clever content creator and a person who underestimated what happens when civil money problems start smelling like federal fraud allegations. Both things, true at the same time. That's the part the chess theory doesn't have room for. She might be playing chess. The opposing side just brought a whole different game board. Watch how the next 90 days unfold and tell me I'm wrong. The path most likely to land. The federal court in Florida moves to consolidate or coordinate with the bankruptcy proceeding, and Yelen Entertainment gets treated, for legal purposes, as a continuation of Kebe Studios. Once that happens, the $356,000 figure isn't a one-off allegation anymore. It becomes a starting point. Discovery widens. More transfers surface. The I'm broke, I drive a Prius. Public narrative collides with quarterly earnings, reports the court can already see. Don't be shocked when a sealed motion drops about additional accounts nobody on the timeline has named yet. The path that flips the table. Tasha K's husband's deposition becomes the wedge. He's already on record, under oath, admitting movements were made to avoid garnishment. That admission protects him from one kind of charge and exposes him to another, civil fraud, which doesn't require criminal intent, just intent to hinder a creditor. By Q4 2026, expect the conversation to shift from, is Tasha hiding money, to, is the husband personally liable for the entire judgment plus interest? That's a different headline. That's a different kind of calendar invite. And the aftershock 5 years out, the cultural one, is the part famed Cryptix viewers should circle on the calendar. This case becomes precedent. Not legal precedent in a textbook sense, but cultural precedent. Every gossip channel built on borderline content is going to have to rewrite their LLC structure, their content insurance, their non-disparagement contingencies. The next Tasha K won't be able to do what this one did, because Cardi's team just published the playbook for how to come collect. Once the template is in the wild, the entire celebrity blogger ecosystem reprices its risk. Some channels will quietly pivot. A few will fold entirely. The loudest survivors will be the ones who learn to speak in implication, not accusation. That's the residue. 5 years from now, somebody's going to write a long-form piece about how one defamation case changed the architecture of digital gossip media. This will be the case. Tasha K might walk away from this with money. She is not walking away from this with the same internet she came in on. That's the read. You got the version of this story that the headlines are scared to fully say out loud. Drop your take in the comments. Chess, checkers, or somebody bluffing at a poker table they never paid the buy-in for. I want all of it. Smash that like. Hit subscribe. Ring the bell. Fame Cryptix is already cooking part 2 on what discovery turns up next. Don't sleep. See y'all in the next one.